Good morning. My name's Lorene. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. I'm so glad you're here. This is the time of year when Nonfiction November begins to ramp up, which is organized and originated with Olive at Olive Books. And I will link below her announcement video. It's really cute this year because she's been doing it for 10 years and she's got pretty much the same kind of introductory spiel from year to year. So she's cobbled together a montage of the first, the second, and the third and years, and you get to see the changes in her hairstyles and makeup. It's a cute little intro. And today's or this November she has 4 prompts, which I meant to write down and I forgot. There's join and there's path, but I'll put them on the screen so that you can see them. But I recommend you go over to her video and watch it. So the deal is that November you focus on nonfiction in your reading, and the challenge is to read a minimum of 1 nonfiction book during the month of November. And she creates these prompts to help not motivate, but to help organize your thinking about what sort of books that you would like to look for. And so for instance, on the one for path, you might pick up a travelogue, or you might pick up something about self-help, or you might pick up something that is like a discovery path, a science discovery path or something. So you can play, or migration, bird migration, for instance. So you can play around with her prompts. Typically they have had, I might be telling a lie, but I don't think so. She has suggested 1 book as a group read along. I'm pretty sure that's happened a few times. And she does some other things. She's connected onto all different kinds of social media, so you can connect in, and perhaps it's, let's just pretend it's Instagram, and it might be upload the photos of your current reads, nonfiction. So I'm making that up. I haven't gone to the Instagram and seen what they're doing there, but you can get really a deep dive into and read, 4, 6, 12 books, whatever you want to do, or you can just read the read along, or you can just read the book that you choose just one of. So previous years I've noticed that my viewers, you guys, don't really click on to that kind of video. So what I'm going to do is just include the nonfiction book as part of my regular reading routine. But I felt that for those of you who really like nonfiction, that it would be fun to do some recommendations. And I'm going to pull out a couple that I've mentioned before, partly because I haven't finished them, and partly because I think these are really solid books to try and see if you can get. Now, I have no idea if they're available at libraries, because I find nonfiction, whenever I try to look things up at the library, I have a pretty low success rate. So this one I believe I mentioned in the summer, Rome, A History in 7 Sackings by Mathew Kneale. And Mathew Kneale is an author of 6 previous books, including English Passengers, which was shortlisted for the Booker Prize, and he lives in Rome. Anyways, this is about the city of Rome and how there were 7 significant times in history that Rome was invaded. There are some pictures in the middle of it to give some slight context. If you've never been, I've been to Rome, but oh my goodness, what is that? Was in the 80s, 20s, like that's close to 40 years ago. So who knows what's happened. Everything seemed to be under scaffolding at the time. But it's kind of fun. I have a vague idea of what it was like in the 1980s, and it gives me some reference points for what's being discussed. So for each invasion, there's also a map that is what the city would have been like at the time of the invasion. So I've read the first one that has to do with the Gauls, and that was kind of interesting because I had no idea really about the actual origins of Rome. I thought I thought people came into Rome with to do the building, the initial building, with more of a game plan, but I think it was more of an organic rising of a city. So the Gauls, the Goths, more Goths, Normans, Spanish and Lutherans, French, Nazis, and an afterword are all the different topics that they cover. I enjoyed the first chapter. I'm really intrigued to keep on going. And oh boy, as I'm looking at this book, something got it wet. Wasn't me. So I'm going to keep reading this one. I got Harry Potter fiction is on my bedside table right now, but I'm going through it much quicker than I thought. So I think this will be the next bedtime read. And based on the first chapter, I predict I really enjoy it. Now, I mentioned this one also in the summer, The Curve of Time, and it's a memoir, M. Wylie Blanchett. And this is a lady who became a single mom with 4 kids unexpectedly. So she bought a boat and is traveling up the British Columbia coastline with the kids, and over multiple summers. Now, Steve read it. He really enjoyed it. We were doing it as a read aloud, and I just didn't like it. I have a phobia about being in water where there's the potential of anything more than just a little bit of plankton, or the occasional floating dead bug. So these guys are just getting in and out of the water and fishing and there's waves and it was not a good bedtime read for me. And so I'm going to put this aside for the summer and read it during the daytime. But it also has photographs of the family traveling on their little boat, and this was happening. When did they were doing this in the 60s? I think. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, like look, like they're celebrating swimming. What kind of insane people are those? So for those of you who like outdoors and not like living in nature and so on, I think this is going to be a terrific choice. And her name is spelled Wylie, and then Blanchett, Blanchett, and the boat is called the Caprice, and it's fairly small. This is a fairly accurate, I hope that worked, depiction of the boat. So mom, 4 kids, and then as the kids got older, friends came aboard. So and a little dinghy behind. This book I recommended last year, and I still think it's the best nonfiction book that I have read in the last 3 years at least. There was The Secret Lives of Color, which I really enjoyed, but this is The Secret Lives of Stones, the Lapidarium by Hette, and I just adored this book. It takes you through the geology and the gemology, and you are seeing it through the eyes of art, myth, philosophy, power in terms of different countries trying to claim a resource. Let's pretend diamond mines. It has to do with some storytelling. Every time you pick up a stone, for instance, here we've got the spinel, which is, it's not exactly like a ruby, but it can be confused for a ruby. And it's talking about the Mughal Empire, and there's about, I think it was used in crowns and tiaras in Western Europe. And so this stone's little sort of popularity, rise and fall is discussed, or the difficulty of another stone might be something called Peely's hair, which is really, really rare. It's part of a volcanic what would you call it, like aftermath, and terribly fragile, and very, like, can be really bad for inhaling and so on. So there's just all kinds of minutiae in here, and if you like Trivial Pursuit, this is a goodie. So she's got it broken, or yes, she has got it broken down into chapters as well. So if you're only interested, for instance, in gems, you can do that. So they've been broken into sacred stones, living stones, technology, shapes, stories. I loved this book. And one of the things I loved about this book is that as a writer, I could go in and I could pick up I could open up any stone, like here I'm at onyx, and I could read through this, and there'd be all kinds of creative writing prompts or drawing prompts or something that I could pull out of it. So I think it's just a really great resource for imagination and storytelling of any kind. So if for instance, if some sultan guy has decided to give all of his harem a ring, but now the ladies are all arguing over who got the best ring, you know, imagine the mayhem, and there you go, short story. This one, this is an ambivalent book for me. I don't think I can recommend it, but I'm going to read it anyways. Bringing Back the Beaver, the story of one man's quest to rewild Britain's waterways by Derek Gow. I'm about a third through, and it's not what I like in nonfiction. I like the author to be distant. Olive Books loves when the author is part of the exploration of whatever the topic is, and I'm like not for it. So this guy, Derek Gow, is really in the story, and I'm really interested in the idea of Britain rewilding with beavers because, well, this year we lost a substantial oak tree to beavers, and like, why that particular oak tree? There's like gazillions of trees around us, and like we've been nurturing it along because it was growing kind of crooked, and so we had really worked hard to kind of pulling it back and using a pine tree to kind of every year we kind of did a little bit more and a little more. So we were at a safe tilt at this juncture, and that was about 15 years of nurturing this oak tree along. And also some of the perimeter pine trees are starting to disintegrate. So, you know, we're trying to get a young tree to come up through the old trees. Well, Mr. Beaver or Mrs. Beaver just had a really good nosh, and down the tree went. And, you know, like curses. But that's why I think to myself, why does Britain want beavers? So I'm really interested about it from an ecological standpoint, because I can just imagine if anybody's, I'm fairly even-tempered, I'm fairly easygoing. I'm the intruder on the island. Like, we try really hard to not be invasive on that island. There's no grass, there's no gardens, nothing like that. So, like, of course the beaver should have my tree, but on the other hand, so I'm wondering what the Brits are going to be like when some of their trees start to go down. I kind of like the book, but I kind of don't like the book. So depends on how you like your nonfiction. But this is one of my goals for the reading month. These other three, one I've already read, one is saving for the summer, and one is going on my bedside table. So that's about the extent of my ambitions. Now, on my shelf, I have three others that I have sort of poked my nose in enough to know that these are on my to-do list, and I'm hoping you might like them. One is An Unquiet History by Mathew Battles, The Library. And let's see, it's basically the history of libraries, and as I'm a huge library user, so I think this is just going to be a fun general survey kind of a book, and probably goes across lots of cultures, lots of countries, and I find that always very entertaining. Now, the next one, or did I show you the cover? Sorry. And that's by Mathew Battles. The next one was sent to me by a friend, and thank you, Mimi, but I'm not quite ready for this book. The Oilman and the Arno Kopecky, Navigating the Northern... Oh, no, that's the author. The Oilman and the Sea by Arno Kopecky, Navigating the Northern Gateway. And this has to do with First Nations and non-Indigenous Canadians during, I believe, it has to do with the Northern Gateway project, and yes, along a tanker route along a First Nations coastal, is it actually a reservation or a preserve? I'm not sure. I'll find out in here. So I'm looking forward to this, but this for me also is probably a good winter book. And I think probably, I'm just guessing, but I have a feeling that this is also going to be a good bedtime read. You know, you can read 1 or 2 chapters and then set it aside and not be disturbed. You can go to sleep peacefully. Okay, now this is a book that I've picked up and put down multiple times, and it's really interesting, so I don't know why I'm doing that. The Irish Game by Mathew Hart, author of Diamond. And this is a famous paintings, a notorious thief, cunning cops, and a troubled Irish history. And this is basically what happened in Ireland when several paintings went missing. Let's see, Gainsborough, Goya, 2 Rubens, and a Vermeer, and they were all stolen by the same thief. So it's a little bit of art history in the very beginning as we get to know the paintings a little bit, but then we start to get into the crime and the how they managed to pull it off and not have the paintings be discovered for quite a long time. So why have I picked it up and put it down? I think mostly pretty much every time I picked it up, I had a really good stack of fiction books, and fiction will always pull me. So it's like a choice between something true and authentic and something completely fantastical. I always head to the fantastical. Now, I was at my book club last night, and I'm going to have to put the information down below because it was something that I don't think I took a picture of the front of the book, but it's called The Index, and it's also it's a history of how the index came to be, things like chapter headings and page numbers, and we're all kind of listening to the person who's promoting it and thinking, how can that be interesting? But I think it's a little bit like some of these others where like the history of the library, for instance. So I'm going to add it to the bottom, and I don't know enough about it to be 100% sure, but everybody in the room was like, oh, that sounds really good. So generally these ladies are pretty good at discerning what's going to be a good nonfiction book. I think that as they're getting older, and yeah, I think who's the youngest it doesn't matter. We're all so old, nobody remembers who's the youngest. So fiction has become a bit more of a challenge in the last few years. We started together as a group reading young adults and really enjoyed it, but this group became somewhat tired of young adult books, partly because they were reading them as librarians professionally, and not everybody's a librarian, but at the time there were a number of them. And as the years have evolved, a few of those librarians who were reading young adults have dropped away from the group. And so we now have a group of 5 or 6 ladies, depending on the month, who've read just about everything that's good in young adults. The current stock of young adult books is, I think, getting thinner and thinner in terms of quality. Quantity, lots. Quality, not so much. So anyhow, we've segued over into reading more adult fiction. And that's been a bit of a challenge too, in terms of finding something that everybody likes. But we've moved to a new rule, and that at least one person in the room has had to have read the book before we decide on it. So that way we can get a bit of insight into the book as opposed to reading a review out of a magazine or what's selling on a list here or there. So we do like to have at least one person in the room's recommendation, and they will say, I don't think you're going to like it. And that has worked a bit better. And what are we reading? I think the next one we're reading is called Burnham Wood. I think it's a mystery. But anyhow, I'm having troubles finding it. And I know that Unsheltered by Barbara Kingsolver is coming to us. Barbara Kingsolver is not my favorite. Anyways, I'm just on a roll that has nothing to do with nonfiction, right? Because I just love talking about books. So yeah, I guess that's it for me. I'll try and link as much information below as I can in the doobly-doo below. And I hope that something piques your interest, that nonfiction captures a spark of imagination for you. And I would love to hear what you're reading. You can do it in comments. And if you've got any recommendations, throw that to us as well, because I've discovered that for some of the booktubers that I follow who lean towards nonfiction, quite often in the comments there will be other recommendations that don't arise in the videos, and so reading the comments at Olive will probably give you quite a lot of recommendations. And I should say that part of her deal is that leading up to November, she will have some recommendations, quite a few recommendations that meet the prompt or just are generally good nonfiction books. So even if you just want to tag, or save her video for, like, for instance, Christmas gift ideas for people, or when you want to do nonfiction at a different time of year, she's just a really great resource. And so I highly recommend Olive. I guess that's it for me. I hope all your reading dreams and adventures continue to come true, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye for now.